Have you ever stopped to think how much of your life is really your own? Every day you make countless decisions, yet most of them are influenced by things you don't even notice. Imagine a system built around you, silently shaping your habits, your thoughts, and even the opportunities that appear in front of you. Most people never see it because it wasn't designed to be obvious. It grew slowly, almost imperceptibly, layer by layer, piece by piece, engineered so carefully that by the time you notice it, it feels completely natural. It guides what you do, who you trust, and even how you feel, often without you realizing it. And yet, it's not something designed to harm, it's a system that keeps itself running efficiently, quietly controlling outcomes while remaining invisible. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and explore how these systems form, how they quietly shape the world around us, and why understanding them might be the first step toward real freedom. By the end of this video, you'll see life a little differently and maybe start noticing choices you didn't even know you were making.
Every system starts somewhere, often so small that it goes completely unnoticed. It might begin as a single idea, a simple rule, or even a convenience that seems harmless at first. Think about the little routines you follow every morning, the apps you open without thinking, or the small choices that quietly shape your day. At the beginning, everything seems optional, even trivial, but these early elements are the foundation of something much bigger. Each small design choice matters. It influences behavior, sets expectations, and begins forming habits. One convenience becomes a habit, one habit becomes a pattern, and patterns repeated over time grow into structures that subtly guide behavior. The genius of a system in its infancy is that it doesn't need to impose force. Its influence is subtle, almost invisible. People feel as though they are choosing freely, yet their choices are being guided by a structure they hardly notice. It's in these small, seemingly insignificant beginnings that control is sewn into the very fabric of life, laying the foundation for a framework that grows stronger and more inescapable with every passing day.
Once a system takes root, it doesn't stay small for long. It begins to grow almost imperceptibly, spreading into areas of life you didn't even realize it could reach. At first, the growth seems harmless or even helpful. It brings convenience, solves little problems, and makes everyday tasks easier. Maybe it's a new app that saves you time, a habit that organizes your day, or a rule that promises efficiency. Each addition seems optional at first, but over time, these expansions stack together, creating an invisible network that surrounds every part of your life. The real brilliance of this expansion is that people rarely notice it happening. The system doesn't need to force anyone because it creates conditions where voluntary participation is easier than resistance. Routines, conveniences, social expectations, and even subtle incentives guide behavior naturally. Step by step, it becomes normalized. What once felt like a choice now feels like the only option. This slow, steady growth is what makes systems so powerful. They don't push or coerce, they invite, encourage, and eventually make people feel trapped by their own habits. Imagine a river slowly carving a canyon over centuries. You don't see it happening day by day, but over time the landscape changes and the path becomes permanent. Systems expand in the same way. Technology, social norms, infrastructure, and daily habits all contribute to growth. Each expansion reduces the need for outside control because people maintain the system themselves. And as more people participate, the system strengthens, making deviation feel unnatural or even uncomfortable. By the time you realize how pervasive it is, the system has become a natural part of life, so deeply embedded that it almost seems inevitable. One of the most fascinating things about these systems is how they make you feel free even when your choices are tightly guided. On the surface, it seems like you have options. You can choose what to buy, where to work, how to spend your time, but all of these choices exist within boundaries you rarely notice. Imagine walking through a maze with walls painted in bright, enticing colors. Every turn looks like a choice. Every path seems open, yet the walls subtly direct you along a path you didn't even realize was planned.
This is where the illusion of freedom comes into play. The system doesn't need to force you because it gives the impression that you're in control. Comfort, convenience, and habit are carefully designed tools that guide your decisions without your awareness. Even the feeling of rebellion, making small choices that seem independent, is often part of the system itself, keeping you engaged while still moving in the directions it intended. The brilliance of this design is subtlety. People rarely notice that their freedom exists only within the confines of the system. Each decision you make reinforces the system's structure while making it feel as though you're acting autonomously. By providing just enough choice to feel independent, the system ensures you remain inside it, believing you are in control. And the more comfortable, habitual, and convenient the system becomes, the less incentive there is to step outside it. In essence, the system thrives because it allows you to believe you are free, while quietly steering every step you take. Over time, a system stops needing constant oversight. It becomes self-sustaining, running on its own momentum, quietly maintained by the people it affects. What's remarkable is that those within the system often become its keepers without even realizing it. By following routines, habits, or social expectations, people reinforce the system day after day. Actions that seem personal or trivial, checking your phone, following certain habits, supporting familiar structures, actually help maintain the entire network. Feedback loops begin to form. One action encourages another, and one habit strengthens the next. The more people engage, the stronger the system becomes, until it no longer feels like a system at all. It simply feels like life. Communities, workplaces, societies, and even families unknowingly contribute to keeping it alive. What once required design, effort, or oversight now continues automatically, feeding on itself. The brilliance of this self-sustaining stage is that it doesn't need coercion or enforcement. Its survival relies on participation, and participation feels voluntary, natural, and even necessary. By this stage, the system is deeply embedded, almost invisible, yet incredibly powerful. It can influence decisions, shape behavior, and maintain control, all while remaining unnoticed. And the truly fascinating part is that the more people rely on it, the less effort it needs to keep running. The system has effectively taught itself to survive through the very people it influences, creating a network that feels eternal and unstoppable. Escaping a system like this isn't as simple as walking away. The difficulty isn't physical, it's psychological, social, and emotional. People are deeply tied to the structures they live within, whether it's routines, communities, habits, or even their own sense of identity. Leaving the system, or even questioning it, can feel risky. It challenges comfort, familiarity, and the predictable rhythm of life. Many people never even consider stepping outside because the thought of disruption, uncertainty, or isolation is too daunting. But escaping doesn't mean abandoning everything. True escape begins with awareness. The moment you recognize the patterns, understand the invisible rules, and see how your choices are subtly guided, you gain a new form of freedom. Awareness allows you to navigate the system consciously, making intentional decisions rather than being passively swept along. You may still operate within the system, but now you do so with understanding. The walls of the maze are still there, but now you can see the structure, predict the turns, and choose where to step more deliberately. This kind of freedom is subtle but powerful. It doesn't require rebellion or chaos. It simply requires noticing, understanding, and making informed choices.
The more you recognize the invisible mechanisms at work, the less control they have over you. In essence, awareness is the key to autonomy. And once you start seeing the system for what it really is, the way you experience life begins to change. You start making decisions that reflect your priorities rather than the system's design. And suddenly, what felt inescapable begins to feel manageable. The truth is, these systems aren't inherently evil. They're powerful precisely because they are invisible. Their strength comes from subtlety, from shaping behavior without anyone realizing, and from becoming such a natural part of life that most people assume it has always existed. But the moment you see how they operate, you step out of passive participation and into awareness. You gain clarity, understanding, and the ability to make intentional choices. Awareness doesn't instantly dismantle the system, but it changes your relationship with it entirely. You begin to see the patterns, recognize the rules, and notice the invisible boundaries that guide most decisions. That clarity gives you power, the power to act consciously rather than reactively. You start making choices that truly reflect your priorities, not the invisible pressures of a system you once didn't see. And it's not just about personal freedom. Understanding these systems allows you to recognize how they influence others and to make smarter, more deliberate decisions in every part of life. Once you notice the mechanisms at work, the control the system has over you begins to fade. You may still interact with it daily, but now you do so on your own terms. The world hasn't changed, but your perspective has, and perspective, as subtle as it may seem, is a form of freedom that no system can take away. Once you begin to see, once you begin to understand, the maze is no longer confining. You can move within it consciously, with awareness, and with the knowledge that every choice you make is your own. And that, perhaps, is the truest kind of freedom.